Hey everybody, this is Mr. H, and we are going to preview the book 12 Questions About the Bill of Rights by Molly Jones. And you can see here, there's a quick line here. It says, tells the story behind the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. And so, again, the idea here is that we are going to be looking at the book. We're going to look at the pictures and the headings and the titles and notice the things we can notice before we start reading anything on the very first page. Okay, so we're going to do that together. So here we notice this book, it starts here with a table of contents. So this is telling us what sort of things we can expect to be reading about. And so take a moment and you can see here's the different topics that are being covered on each of these pages in this book. Down here, we get to this thing called a fact sheet. And so they have a couple of pages where they just have some random facts that really didn't fit anywhere else in the book that they wanted you to see. Then down here, you can see on page 30, there's a glossary. And so to remind you, a glossary is like a dictionary just for this book in the very back of the book. So if we run into words that we're unfamiliar with, this is a place where we can find the definitions to those words. All right, so here let's move on to the very first pages. So let's notice the things that stand out on these pages. Again, we're going to ignore the text. We're just going to look at the pictures and the headings and other things. And so the heading for this chapter, it says, what is the Bill of Rights? Good question. So that's a question we want to be able to answer by the time we are done reading this section. We can notice there's some pictures here. There's this guy here, kind of a brown picture. And over here, we got a black and white. Both of these are illustrations. They're not photographs or anything like that. And so below each picture, there is a caption. So let's read the captions. This one says, Benjamin Franklin was one of the leaders who helped write a set of laws for the newly formed United States of America. So this is Benjamin Franklin. And over here, you can see this person over here in these fancy clothes. I think maybe you've seen this picture before. And it says the former colonists wanted to safeguard the rights that were in short supply under England's King George III. So this is a painting of King George of England, King George III. Then you can see here's this extra table here. So this would be something to notice right now too. 10 is the number of amendments in the Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights is a list of amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Americans did not want their federal government to be too strong. This document ensures certain freedoms for individuals, and it also makes clear which powers belong to states and which belong to the federal government. All right, so before we even start reading this section, we already know a lot about what's happening here, and you might remember some things we've read from other places. The next pages, here we go, pages 6 and 7. Why was the Bill of Rights added to the Constitution? So again, we can notice that there's some text, but we have two illustrations, or here's an illustration. This looks like a photo perhaps, and they each have captions, and then we have some other captions here. So that's what we should take a look at. So here we can see that a black and white drawing, it looks like, of somebody. And it says, James Madison initially thought the Constitution was fine as written. So we can assume this is probably James Madison right here, whose illustrations and paintings of him we've seen in other places. Then over here, this looks like a sculpture. It looks like a photograph of a sculpture. And it says the George Mason Memorial in Washington, D.C. commemorates the man credited for making the Bill of Rights possible. So I imagine that this is representing George Mason. And you can see it looks like, yeah, he's been made out of bronze there. Over here it says failed amendments. Many different amendments were suggested for the Bill of Rights. Some of them suggested ideas that seem strange to us today. One amendment proposed that no U.S. citizen should have a title of nobility, such as that of king or prince. Then over here it says 19, number of amendments Madison originally proposed. Some writers of the Constitution did not want the Bill of Rights added. 2 amendments were rejected by the states and did not make it to the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution in 1791. So once again, without even having read all this text, this is probably unlocking or reconnecting you with some of the things that you already know about the Constitution. All right, on to section 3. Who wrote the Bill of Rights? Good question. So again, but instead of reading the text here, let's take a look at the pictures and other things on these pages. So here is looks like a drawing of somebody with the fancy clothing that we've seen before in the What is the Constitution book. It says Thomas Jefferson heavily influenced the ideas and freedoms behind the Bill of Rights. So this must be Thomas Jefferson. And then over here we can see there's another picture, and it says Magna Carta of King John, AD 1215. And so then below it, it says a replica of the Magna Carta. And you can see here, if you look at it carefully, it looks like it's a whole bunch of writing. Nothing's been broken into paragraphs though, right? It's just kind of sentence after sentence. It's hard to make out. Looks like it's written in cursive as well. Over here it says 1, number of founders most often credited with writing the Bill of Rights. James Madison is regarded as the author of the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was modeled after the Virginia Declaration of Rights. Madison was influenced by Thomas Jefferson and George Mason. Then over here, next to the Magna Carta part, it says British roots. The Constitution was influenced by a document called the Magna Carta, or Great Charter. This document was an attempt to outline certain individual rights in England in 1215. That seems like a long time ago, huh? Many of those same ideas were included in the Bill of Rights. So remember, the Bill of Rights is from 1790. It was, 1791 was when it was finally approved. So you can see that's some 500 plus years later. Okay, on to section 4. How does the Bill of Rights promote individual rights? All right, so let's notice the other things on these pages. And so here we can see there is a picture, and it looks like there's something going on here. And then this looks like maybe it's a monitor for a news camera or something. And so it looks like perhaps this picture is what's going on here. And this is President Barack Obama. Perhaps he was giving a speech as president, and so he's being shown on television. And then over here you can see this is a drawing of some kind, and it looks like it's in black and white. You can see there's 7 people, some of them sitting, some of them standing, and this person right here might be familiar to you, this face you might have seen before. So let's take a look at the captions. For this photo over here, it says the Bill of Rights guarantees the media the right to report on the government without interference. So that's probably what's going on here is somebody's filming the president. Over here it says, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, but it took until December 1865, when the 13th Amendment was ratified, before slavery officially ended. So this is President Lincoln right here, and then these are other people that are perhaps advisors, other people who work with the president. 35. Number of months between issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation and the ratification of the 13th Amendment. The Bill of Rights states the freedoms that individuals have. It also outlines which rights belong to the states. Slaves were not considered citizens at the time the Bill of Rights was written. Okay, on to section 5. What rights does the First Amendment grant? So you can see here, in this case, we've got some photographs. So these are color photographs, so more modern times. And so here you can see there's a picture of a number of different people. And here in the foreground is a person holding a large sign on cardboard that says Black Lives Matter. So this is certainly a very current picture. It says the freedom to assemble is one of the key rights granted by the First Amendment. So this is a group of people here gathered together, assembling together. Then over here we can see another picture. And so it says there's people that are holding signs. And these are printed signs rather than, hand done on cardboard. It says stand up for religious freedom, stop Obama's HHS mandate. Another sign looks like this one, stand up for religious freedom. says religious freedom is another right that the First Amendment guarantees American citizens. And over here you can see it says 1991, year the First Amendment Center was created to educate Americans about the amendment. The First Amendment establishes many important rights. It guarantees freedom of speech and religion. It also guarantees freedom of the press. Then it says, think about it. Okay. The First Amendment outlines a number of important rights that deal with how we express ourselves. Which of them do you think is the most important? Support your opinion with facts. All right, that's an important thing to think about. And one more section. Why was the Second Amendment created? So then you can see over here, this looks like a drawing of some kind, and you can see it looks like it's soldiers and other people marching together, somebody with a drum and somebody playing the flute or a fife, perhaps. You can see there's a flag back here, somebody on a horse. So I would imagine that these are soldiers. And over here it says, we have guns. Looks like a big poster. And then here is a picture of a gun. And so this one, the caption says, a colonial militia led by a drummer and a fifer march off to war. Okay, so that's what's going on in this picture here. And then over here, it says gun control is one of the most controversial issues in the United States today. And over here, it says 310 million, approximate number of guns owned by U.S. citizens. Wow, that's a big number, huh? The right to bear arms is guaranteed in the Second Amendment. The right to own guns was important to colonists who were unable to do so under British rule. Today, the country still debates whether people should be able to own guns or what types of guns should be available. All right, we will get to the second part of this preview in the next video.